broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Can you see my screen now or not? No.
Yes, I can see your screen, Brian.
Yeah.
So if I put slideshow from beginning, can you see that now?
Yep.
Yes.
Can't see anybody else. I can't see myself. I can't see you guys. Is there a, so you can see my first slide there, yeah?
And we can see your video.
And you can see me waving, but I can't see anybody else. I can't see, I can only see myself. So whether there's another, hang on.
I can see you and Jim and me. Oh, no, good to see you and Jim and me.
Has it gone now?
Yes, it's gone.
So thank you, Tom, much appreciated, and thank you for the Glasgow section for inviting me up here. As you can see, well, first of all, if anybody has, please stop me at any time if you can't hear me, or Tom and Jim, please. You know, there's a problem with the signal because I was involved in a PWI meeting last week, and the presenter prattled on in the ether for about 10-15 minutes, and he'd gone off. So let's just hope that doesn't happen to me. But you can always give me a call if that happens. I've got my phone with me, and I have got a beer, which thank you very much for the offer of buying me the beer. And it's actually the Bottle of Britain, believe it or not, which I thought was quite fun. Although it's a Welsh beer. Anyway, I hope you're going to enjoy the presentation. And it's a bit of a double-sided presentation. So it's what I consider to be challenges for the railway in Britain, and how we as the Permanent Way institution will respond to it. So there's quite a lot to cover in this presentation. But first of all, I hope you can see that. You know, we're a strange bunch. This was taken as a PWI event this year. There's some smiling faces there, people from all over the country. So we are strange as railway people. You know, we are quite likable, and we do enjoy getting together and working together with challenges. And that's certainly what I want to emphasize today. So what am I going to cover today? Well, I'm going to just reiterate where the PWI is, and just so that everybody understands what the PWI is these days. And you will notice in the top left-hand corner there's a little sort of newish logo, and you know, things are moving on in terms of the PWI, and we are changing, and hopefully many people, I'll just grab over, hopefully you've got, I don't know whether you can see that, but the Careers in Rail, this is the PWI journal. So you know, we are looking to change and develop what we do. I'll talk about professional registration and PWI training, and I'm also challenging people because, you know, we are a well-known organisation in the industry, well supported and well respected. So some challenges for us to think about, and then finally what you're doing about CPD. So what an amazing place the PWI is. Look at this. 42,100 years of experience, as Tom was just telling us. It was indicating the sort of things I did, and I'm really pleased that I did all sorts of different jobs and still do different jobs. So, you know, night shifts, problems, successes, awards and courses, of course, and I enjoy nothing more than seeing people succeed. Just to start the ball rolling and put it into where we are, when I was giving talks last year, I was talking a lot about how things can go horribly wrong with the weather, and this was Liverpool Street, and I had this photograph. I thought, gosh, what an incredible place Liverpool Street was in 2019. This was Liverpool Street in 2020. It does give us a pause for thought, doesn't it, as railwaymen, to see how you can go from one extreme to the other in the current times that we're in. They just, you know, we do need to wake up and smell the coffee and see what the impact is in the longer term. We as the PWI, of course, changed a bit really. We're getting a lot, you know, we welcome everybody in the PWI, and that's a big change. I want to talk about that a little bit because, you know, there's a picture of the underground there. There's, you know, there's bridges, there's electrification, anything that's fixed. and the railways, we want to get involved in. So we've got members in all these places, and what an amazing network that creates. So who is this PWI community today? Well, look at all this lot on the left there. All these people. Electrification is the big issue for us, bringing those people into the fore. We've actually got a chartered member of the PWI, an electrification engineer. So that's amazing. So it's the interfaces with the railway as a system. And you deal with all these people. You deal with the operations, you deal with communications and rolling stock people and everything else. And, you know, it's just that we are a massive community of people. But it's not always new, is it? Because we're doing a lot with heritage railways these days. So, you know, many of the issues with the older steam trains too as well. And look at this here. Sorry, the double slide there, but look at this here, the guys there and the support that we're giving. And practical track work challenge is something that we've been looking at as well. So we've been around a long time. And look at this document here from 1937. You know, the evolution of permanent waste. So we've been around a while. And we were in 1937. We were getting together. We were having meetings, and we were even doing training. So we've got an amazing heritage. You know, the railways have got a heritage. We've got a heritage, but we're now modern. You know, I've just shown you the new. You can see the new style a little bit of our journal. Our journals have changed over the time. But we've got web, we've got social media, meetings, seminars, etc. So it's all about communication, really, more than anything else. And we are this community. So what I'm really sort of trying to point out here is that, you know, we want to ensure everybody joins in with us. So what's the timeline? I mean, people may have forgotten where we came from. 1884 we were created, and in those formative years, you know, once the railways all changed over the years, and British Rail and London Underground, Irish Rail, very much involved with the PWI. As far, I mean, I joined on the first day I joined the railway, I was a member of the PWI. It was just a thing to do. But things have changed, and the point I made, the reason for talking to everybody is, where are we now? I'm amazed. I'm absolutely amazed. I gave us a little internal target of saying I wanted 200 registered engineers by the end of 2020. We achieved that 3 weeks ago. So we've got 200, over 200 registered engineers now, which is amazing from a standing start, you know, only less than 4 years ago. So we are, you know, as far as the Engineering Council are concerned, which is who we all respond into, you know, they like us. We are part of that community of being part of UK engineering. And like all the other institutions, we have all these different things, and a lot of people know about other institutions. But, you know, we are the professional community as well. The Engineering Council, you may not know much about them, but actually the whole process of professional registration is part of them. There's this thing called UK Spec, you may have heard of, and it standardises engineering qualifications across the whole of the country. And, you know, when I say the country, I mean all the nations of the UK. And, you know, it's very much about pulling it all together and having a recognised standard. And it's interesting on timeline, because the first institution was the ICE in 1818. You may not know that. But, you know, 1884, the PWI came along. So we've been around with these guys for a long time, and there are 37 institutions part of us. So where are they all? You may come across a lot of these. We sit alongside all this lot now, you know. There's a lot of things going on with us working with the ICE in terms of accredited university courses. Quite a lot of university courses have got railways in them. We do work. I work with the IET. I work with the IMechE. I also, you know, and not as much with the IRSC, but that's an area for me. And some people may be involved in the iStructy. So we're one of this group. And this is why registration is the new future requirement for where we are. And CPD is compulsory, and I'm going to be talking about that. I'll also be talking about code of conduct. So CPD, code of conduct, these are things that we talk about, but it's all about sharing knowledge. But the most important thing is that we learn from each other, and we look at innovation and quality improvements. And that's one of the things that we recognise for in terms of society. So let's go into this. What is professional registration? In simple terms, professional registration is academic plus experience equals competence and commitment. And you become a licensed individual to operate, sign off, fix and design. And I think it's a really important element, this, of what it is, because you cannot in the UK be professionally registered with no experience. Other countries actually work slightly differently to the UK. Once you've got your degree, you can be a qualified. Our system is very much similar to the medical profession. Once you become a doctor, that's just the start of a journey. You know, in a medical doctor, you've then got to get the experience of all the different things. And it's exactly the same with with engineering, because you know it is a safety-related location, and it's the public that we really need to think about. And their experience is called initial professional development. But you can see from the bottom of things there, I'm not going to read all this out, but you know, knowledge is, you know, if you've got the knowledge and you've got the experience, you've got the ability. And we talk about these quite a lot in the way that we deal with all this. So, big question, why should you become chartered? Because you can have a happy smiling face like these 4 guys here, with their happy smiling faces when they got their certificates, and you know, they had a glass of wine with us in London, and you know, they are really chuffed that they've started the journey, and they're recognised for what they do. And you can see from my comments on the right there, you know, it's a lot about you know, being a professional engineer, and also there's also the sort of issues to do with, you know, the evidence of what you're actually doing. So in a lot of ways, it's about status, it's about career path. I would summarise, there's lots of stuff on there about earnings and CPD and all the rest of it. I would put it down to one thing in my experience, and it's about choice. Because when you get those professional qualifications, you have a choice in how you move your own career. And the things you want to do, you continue to do, and you're not locked into somewhere, because we all need a change. I never thought I would go to be a civil servant. I never thought that I would have become a university lecturer. I mean, people said to me, you know, when I left, you know, where are you going, Brian? Why are you going to be a lecturer? You know, I thought you ran railways or you ran maintenance or whatever. But it just shows you can take those challenges. And, you know, potentially privatisation gave me a lot more opportunities as well. So that's my summary of why it should happen. But we all know what the levels are. I think in the industry, most people are fully aware that, you know, we have Eng Techs, we have iEng, and we have the CEng as well. But we also concentrate on dual membership. This is why I don't want to simply push the fact that we are one institution. We work with other institutions. We work with the ICE, the IMechE, IET. We work with these, and a lot of people have dual membership. But the most important is it's open to everyone, and I'm going to my message hopefully will get to you in the end. So what's the first steps to registration? Obviously, you must be a member of the PWI. You can't be registered if you're not, because that's the registration body, and we can check qualifications. People need a supporter, and the supporter has, you know, they've got to have somebody who is actually already a registered member. So we can start this off, and there's application forms, and then you've got to be committed to the bottom line there. which is your personal development plan and CPD, which I'll go through at the end. So the supporter and sponsor, just to clarify these, just for anybody who doesn't understand what I mean by that, the PWI doesn't require 3 qualified people. It only requires 1, but you have to have a sponsor. But a supporter can be a line manager, so the supporter knows all about you, and the sponsor is the person who has a connection. And it's quite nice to have 2 people, because the whole purpose of the exercise, and this is where engineers, they support each other, and we support ourselves as a learning profession, and it's good to get people supporting you. So I'm gonna whiz through some of this stuff here, because I'm just putting the slide up because I just want to be sure that people understand this has come straight from Engineering Council, not the PWI. And it just really want to show that you know, and I will be saying this at the end, that people should be able to be engineering technicians, the minimum, because it's about having a comfort level for yourself and the organisation that, you know, you are registered engineers, and I think that's the point about this. And the most important thing is that people are taking on a level of responsibility, and I'm delighted by the number of apprentices going through this route, because at the end of an apprenticeship, you know, you should be able to demonstrate all this, and we've got a number of apprentices. We've got COLAS, we've got TfL, and we're working with Network Rail as well, to help their apprentices through as part of the PWI. I think it's important to mention here that it isn't too low a level for some people either, because I've got graduates with master's degrees, MNGs, who are never going to get chartered for many years because they've got to get the experience, or INGs. But after a couple of years being given responsibility, why not get yourself Eng Tech? And I'm very impressed by a couple of people who've done that. So get there, get registered with Engineering Council and get the letters after your name. It's important to demonstrate at this level, and everybody can do it. And, you know, this is just a little bit of a story. This is on the website, and how you fill in, what you have to fill in, and you get a response fairly quickly. You may have to attend a professional review, but normally you will get through either first time around or with some requests for some further explanation or even evidence, and it may be fairly simple sort of evidence that would just demonstrate that you've got those competencies. So I want to encourage everybody who is working with people to get themselves at this level. Let's just talk about IEng for a minute. The incorporated engineer. This is the person that, you know, they are delivering projects, and they are communicating. They've got an equivalent to bachelor level of knowledge to understand the technology we're talking about. And that doesn't come easy, because if you don't go to uni or college, you've got to go on courses and stuff like this, because you've got to have that level of theory behind being a professional engineer. So that's and this is a very, very strong qualification. And just for a bit of an example, in a lot of project engineer and track maintenance engineer jobs, this is the minimum requirement. You know, either you do it through university or college, or you do it through experience, but you really got to be able to demonstrate that you, from a design point of view, there's people doing design work, there's people doing maintenance work, project work. It's the tick box of actually having the authority to sign stuff off, basically. And then obviously we move up to the CEng bit, and there may be a few CEng's in the room, in this virtual room with us now. And this is where there's just that slight push towards somebody who can question the existing technologies, change things, and take technical accountability. you know, for complex systems. So moving up the process, and it is a journey. You don't need to be chartered to do lots of jobs, but when you get to a certain level, you must be chartered, because you've got to demonstrate to the public that you've got that high level of ability to solve problems and deliver solutions. So those are the three levels, and just for these two, the iEng and CEng, you know, it's bachelor's, it's master's, and it's a fairly straightforward report that you have to do to demonstrate the experience and competencies. And then you have a professional review. And we've had some amazing professional reviews just in the last few weeks, and we've gone through at least two, probably I would say a dozen professional review interviews online, and they've worked really, really well. We didn't do these before. It's just amazing. We didn't really do many by Skype or by Teams or whatever, but we're doing a lot more now, and they're working pretty well. I'm not saying they're perfect in some places, but they are working well. It also helps in terms of people being able, you know, the traveling and all the rest of it. So it is pretty good, and I'm quite impressed by the, you know, the level of commitment people are putting in. Now there is, as I'm sort of closing down on this little bit here, I just want to point out that there are two routes to becoming professionally registered. There's the route where you've got the qualifications, and then you literally go to the review, which is what I just talked about on the last one. Or there's two types of technical routes. So there's a technical report, and I'll talk about experience in a minute, but they're all called, as far as Engineering Council are concerned, and they support this 100%. They're pushing. They're pushing me. I've done a lot of work with the ICE to do this. They're pushing to have routes where people can progress to these levels from a small amount of academic level or mixed amount of academic level and get them through to the end. The Engineering Council really pushing us all to do that. And this technical report route is writing a report on something that, you know, you've been involved in technically, and this can be done at iEng level or CEng level. And it's not easy, but what you've got to work out for yourself is what's the academic sort of requirements that you would expect to get to be this fully, you know, this fully rounded engineer. So rounded engineer is the person with the theoretical knowledge and the experience as well. And it's just been fascinating for me while I've been on this doing an S&C refurbishment course down at Derby, face to face, no less, which is quite a shock. It's been good fun, and it's just trying to get over the message to the people on the course, some of the theories behind loading, you know, wear, things to do with cant deficiency, all the different things that affect, you know, good running and refurbishment of S&C. So it's been quite, I think they were probably quite shocked by the high level we went into. But, you know, we're not expecting people to have degrees in some of this. But we need to make sure at all levels people are aware of the theories behind it. Okay, so once you've done that, once you've got your technical report, then you can just you tick the box, and then you go through to being professional. And then the new route, which I know one or two people have been looking at, and we've had some successes with this so far, where people have got a bachelor degree, they haven't got a master's degree, and they would have had to do one. And this involves what's called experiential learning. So if you've got a bachelor's degree, a BSc or a BEng, or even if you've got an HNCD from pre-99, you can then do this experiential route. Again, nothing's ever easy, and we've had quite a few successes on that so far, and we're working on it. So that's the routes. That's what I wanted to say. And just to finish on this bit, before I have another taste of my beer, because I think I'm allowed a drink. Hopefully Tom will let me have a drink. Just
yes.
can I have a drink, Tom?
Yeah, have to.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, well, you're obviously still there and listening. So professional development, and this is the bit that people struggle a little bit with, and I think it's something that you get forced into in this process. You get forced into being planning your sort of future and trying to look at the things you'd like to do going forwards. And I mean, I've done this on a regular basis. I in some respects, it's relatively easy for me because I can see where I want to go. But I was very much wanting to become a technical report reviewer. So I could actually get that under my belt so I could help other people. So, you know, it might well be that you want to do something in design. And this is about you. So professional development plan is a really important aspect of moving forward. That ties up with potentially people who start on for companies, and people may be aware other institutions have got this. And I'm working with our professional development subcommittee at the moment to look at what we call initial professional development and a training scheme, so that you can use what we call IPD online or similar to record your progress. So it's basically a progressive scheme. Some people may be aware of this from ICE, it's been going a long time, and people help you along the process. It's just to make sure that if you were starting off with an academic qualification, how do you develop, what areas do you need to go into? Not just for secondment or something like that, but I mean, in simple terms, you know, does a designer spend time on site? And does it help your long-term career if you do get that experience? So it's really about having supervising engineers helping you along. And the final slide on all this lot is just the code of conduct. And I hope everybody in this room that we've got so far has got MPWI or FPWI after the name, because if you remember the PWI, you put letters after your name, as long as you comply with all these 5 things. So, you know, I mean, and all of them are pretty straightforward, but it's interesting to see number 3 there, because as railway people, we spend a lot of time thinking about the health and safety of our staff and the passengers. And then we also think a lot about sustainability as well. So, and the bottom one, of course, is you're here today. Today is a CPD event. So, you know, sit down, have a drink, you're doing a CPD event, and it's definitely worth doing. So I'm going to have a drink now while I show you a buckle.
Not just one.
A number of buckles there. So I'm just going to show, I'm going to talk to you about some challenges while I have a bit of another slurp of my beer here. So, and what I want to talk about is, and this all fits in, I'm going to talk about COVID and talk about climate change, decarbonisation, and I'm going to talk a bit technical as well, because this is CPD. So I want you to learn something. So you're here to learn. If you're on one of my courses, I'll be telling you this. Go, as long as you go away with something you've never heard of before, and all of a sudden you become a little bit more knowledgeable about the railway industry. And amazingly enough, you know, these challenges are all what the PWI is about. The PWI is about supporting people through challenges. So is professional journey to be a professional engineer. It's also a series of challenges. So the PWI wants to make sure that as a corporate entity, and obviously as part of Engineering Council, which we are, we're taking all these things seriously, because it's about the mission and vision of our particular bit, permanent way engineering. So let's just start off with a little bit with COVID-19, and that's why I'm not there with you today. I've had this date in my diary for a year to come and talk to Glasgow section. I was really looking forward to it. Top of my agenda. I spent a lot of time in Glasgow for various events and things, and it was quite disappointing that I didn't go. We had to change the conference, and also that I couldn't go to a meeting, but I would definitely have it in my agenda for next year. So this is interesting, and I done a bit of work on this, you know, looking at railways compared with airports. If you've seen this sort of thing before, and it's quite fascinating to look at how busy some of our stations are. What will they be like in, you know, in 2021 going forward? But you know, look at the numbers of people we look after, you know, and hopefully when things pick up and things do change, you know, we get back to providing that amazing service that we always have done. There's Glasgow Central, right in the middle of my screen, and look at you know, how many people there, and there's more people at Glasgow Central than Manchester. So, you know, looking at all these airports, and so obviously investment. You know, what's going to happen? What's going to happen with UK investments in rail? And I think it's worth thinking about. Some of the roads are getting a bit congested again now because people are not using public transport. This will be recognised soon, and they will come back. The bullet point 2, I'm fascinated by. It's a thing that I spend a lot of time in London, as you know, or I used to do. And it's just, will people be commuting? I mean, a lot more people working at home. There's a lot of issues for companies going forward in the next few years. And, you know, there's no doubt that we've got our railways where they are, but there's certainly, we need to look at the numbers, etc. And let's just say construction is continuing. All people are continuing with enhancements projects, and none of these are being cut back to preserve jobs. And I think you know, my indication, and you can, you know, don't want to get into the politics of it, but we have to, because the railways is a very politically driven industry. You know, those things are very important to us. And I'm going to talk about climate change and decarbonisation later on. That agenda will not go away. It's a really, really important agenda. And if I compare that agenda at the bottom bullet point there with the top one, you know, Scotland is going to get rid of diesel by 2045. I've been told that by 2045 you will not have a diesel engine or car. So that's not long off. So that'd be interesting for people to see whether that, you know, there's a lot of plans there to look at how we can stop using diesels. I just thought I'd point out that new station though, for you there, and only over 5 days ago, and I'm just fascinated. I read the story. It was amazing how that this new station's open, Kintore, and 28 trains a day. And I hope there's maybe some people in the room who've actually been part of that scheme. It's an amazing scheme's going up in Scotland. Well done. Oh, the president you might know. Let's go. Let's have a. Now what? This is interesting. I had this slide a while ago. Obviously, I might have to change the slide soon. Who knows, in the next few weeks. But I always put this up. You see, this is our friend. You know, there's no proof that global warming is a problem. The damage is already done. Hydrogen. I'm not going to change my lifestyle. Glug glug. Interesting. I hope you find. I'm convinced about climate change, by the way, and I think some countries are more focused on than others, but definitely the UK. The UK is top of the tree in terms of what we've done, and obviously these are the things we need to look at. So, what about temperatures? And talk about that in a minute. You know, look at this. Temperatures soar in Europe and Arctic. And I know last year and perhaps the back end of this year, we've not had the longer term, but you know, we did have some incredibly high temperatures, and we've had a lot of wildfires as well. California's gone this year. So in actual fact, you know, temperatures are soaring, and we've got to be aware of this going forward. I've nicked this slide, and I always nick slides from good people in Network Rail. Holiday destinations of choice. Look at this. Scotland peak temperatures of 40 degrees by 2050. Look at that chart there. I mean, you know, you could say, are the, it's easy to comment on these, but if you take the long-term trend, you can see this is happening. You know, I mean, I'm actually in Derby at the moment, and even here we are on the 21st of October, the temperature outside my house, and I live in the, not in the city, in north of Derby, 18 degrees. It's daft. It's unbelievable that I've got 18 degrees. So what? So that, you know, these temperatures are strange, aren't they? What's going on? And you know, I look at this one from CNN. This is one of my favourite slides here. The climate's moved along. We do get more hot weather, less extreme cold weather. So, you know, that it's really important. But this is one of the most, I have published this slide a few times, and it is a couple of years out of date now, but it's just showing you from 1980. And I think Tom was talking about when he joined the railway in 1974, I think it was. I don't want to embarrass him. But
46 years ago today, Brian. Come on, give the boy some credit.
I will, 46 years ago today. Thank you, Tom, and thanks for chipping in, because at least I know you're listening. I was looking at that figure there, you know, in the early 80s. You know, you're looking at the number of events, and then you look at what's happened in our extremes more frequent. They're not just more frequent; they're incredibly more frequent. I mean, you know, you look at, if I'm looking to this area, 1980, 85, all that sort of area, and look at where we are now in the back end of, you know, 2020 and where we are, and a lot of it is to do with these, you know, the meteorological and particularly hydrological events as well. So, a slight problem of flooding, and you know, I wanted to talk through a few of these slides, because I talk about this quite a lot on the PWI courses. You know, and that's an adjacent property there and what it's done to our railway line. So I appreciate that most of you probably know quite a lot about Stonehaven, but I just thought I'd mention Stonehaven because I've had a lot of discussions about this, having, you know, done these sort of talks. And you know, I think we're aware that the washout was earthwork material with a severe storm, and the train, you know, rounded a left-hand bend, derailed, and then unfortunately hit a bridge and then went down a hill. Very, very sad event, and I feel, it's something that, you know, we're faced with as a country, because of, you know, the age of our infrastructure and this thing called climate change. And this picture here, I don't know whether people have seen these pictures, but I hope you know, you can just, I mean, I just take a bit of a look and then look at the top left-hand picture there and see, look at that. I mean, this is a washout from somewhere. And if you look at the picture of the hill behind there, you can see where the arrow is on there, on the hill up there somewhere. I mean, who would have thought that you could have had a storm in this area on the right here that would just send all that material down onto the track? It's quite bizarre, really. And even it's not a massive amount of material. I mean, if you look at the, you know, it didn't even really get the other road, you know. But obviously, when the train derailed, of course, it was in the wrong place at the wrong time, like all these things. And you know, in certain circumstances, it could have just been a derailed train, which we've had. But in this circumstance, it was very tragic. But they always say that, you know, things come out of this sort of thing. And one thing that, you know, probably mentioned this to Tom before we started was that, look at the next slide here. I've just taken this literally from the last couple of days. I got a little alert on this. And aren't we good at getting things back? We should be, you know, I'm amazed how it is that people can pull together and really get going. And it's a privilege to be part of this community where you can actually do something like this. And here we are, October 2020, and the repairs are well underway. You know, a serious issue like this, and we can solve it, we can rebuild it, you know, and the public needs to be aware that we have got an amazing group of people that when, you know, the chips are down, we can pull it through. So we can do that with something like that. And I mean, let's just hope that we can put more systems in place to prevent these sort of things happening. So I'm impressed by what's gone on up there, and well done if anybody's on the call for that. West Coast Main Line, Tom said I worked on that as well. Not good, but not unusual. Obviously, we spent a lot. We've done a lot more work on drainage these days, and I know from my times that when money was tight, don't bother with the drains, and look at what was happening there. And this is another one, and you can see the third rail, and that's another example, you know, where we can't run trains, and the implications of that as well. And then I'm going to talk about, obviously, my favourite place. I was TME. This is when I was track maintenance engineer, or PWME as we called them then. This is what I was faced with when I turned up to my station, and you know, it was a fascinating day. And then we've obviously got Dawlish. I think people are aware of what the sea can do to our railways. And then, of course, you know, this shows you what the impacts are around the country. Oops, sorry. And then we are lucky. I mean, you know, sadly in Stonehaven, you know, we had fatalities. But look at this here. We could have had multiple fatalities at Watford Tunnel there, because all this stuff came down and derailed a train. So we do need to keep our eyes on what our neighbours are doing. And this is one of the things I talk about on a lot of courses that I do. And then, of course, finally on this little section, looking at the environmental effects as well. So let me just put some figures to you for Scotland. I just thought I'd look in my records and find out for you. And in June 2018 in Glasgow, it was 33.2 degrees. I don't know whether people remember that day in June, but it was a very hot day. And on that note, I'll have a sip of my beer, because it was obviously a very, very difficult day.
I remember that day. I was stuck in a train outside Glasgow Central Power Box, unable to move in either direction for an hour and a half.
Right.
Because, despite them painting the rails white, all the track circuits were shown occupied.
Right.
All the points were out of correspondence because, yes, the track had moved.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is, it's just amazing. And I mean, I actually, I picked out the lowest in Glasgow, by the way, that was minus 24.6. But I think the lowest in more recent years has been about minus 10. I think we've had temperatures about minus 27. Since 2000, obviously higher in parts of Scotland. But it's just interesting. I think the most interesting comments I would make is that we are generally getting a lot higher temperatures in Scotland, especially in the mid areas, Glasgow, Edinburgh, that sort of area, getting a lot higher temperatures. We probably didn't anticipate in the 1960s when we decided what stress-free temperature should be. And, you know, we're going to have a rethink about this, I think, in terms of how we design our track going forward. But it's just, these are just the rules. If people aren't aware of them, these are Network Rail rules on what happens in terms of ESR, emergency speed restrictions. The interesting thing is, if the air temperature, these are, by the way, if the air temperature gets above 26, then you've got to impose a 30/60 when there's inadequate ballast. So that in Glasgow there, you were way above that, and you know we could have had ESRs all over the place. So big issue for us here. And just a quick one on point machines. If you're not aware of this one, for every 15 degrees C change in temperature, you can alter the switch lengths by usually between 2 and 6, something like that, even more. So you can see the complexity of us carrying out S&C maintenance when we've got this problem here in terms of what happens to the temperature. Luckily, most of the switch diamonds are looked after have been taken out, especially the double slip switch diamond at Derby, which sad to see it go, but we're looking at Derby now, and it's a lot more reliable in terms of the rail infrastructure. So let's just wrap up. Well, I'm on the final fling here on something a bit more technical. I just wanted to throw a few things at you regarding some technical stuff that we've been dealing with the PWI in the last few years, and some highlights from my point of view. We talked a lot about high-speed railways. We've had a couple of really good conferences on this, and if you get really technical, and a friend of mine, David Connolly, who he was at Heriot-Watt, he did all this work at Heriot-Watt University in terms of what happens on high-speed lines, and we get this thing called critical velocity. And this a lot of good work's been done on that. And PWI are working with all these universities around the country now. It's one of our big areas for looking at working together. So that was Rayleigh waves. You get above a certain temperature, above a critical temperature, you get a wave appearing in the ground. We also looked at noise. Noise is a big issue. We talked about environmental stuff, sustainability, but as engineers, we've got to think really seriously about noise. And even in our areas where there's a lot of stuff going on here, all around the country and Europe, to look at ways how we can reduce railway noise, because it can be quite annoying, even not just on high speed as well. So work on noise. And then let's just look at different. I've got a couple of sleepers here for you. I like some of these. Have we still got the right sort of sleepers? Should we be looking at different sort of sleepers with a different ground? Basically, it's all here. The obvious point of the stuff that they've been doing in Europe is it's spreading the load. And I just like this thing from Austria now, and nobody seems to be taking it up. But look at the state of this is a standard sleeper on the right. This is one of their special sleepers on the left, and this is after 28 years and looking at the condition of the ballast. So there's lots to do in terms of the interface between the sleeper and the ballast. I just thought I'd throw a few exciting slides in to show that it's not all boring. Amazing how our people, what they did all those years ago, looking at air, velocity in air and all the rest of it, and some really interesting stuff going back from the past. And one of the other issues at the moment is safety of passengers and trains running past platforms. And this has become it's a challenge for us, to look at the turbulence around platforms. So the RSSB is looking a lot of that. And this next picture, you can see, unfortunately, it's not running. Oh, it's not. It usually runs a bit there, but you can't. Oh, that's not running. But the point about this picture here, it just shows you where all this sort of turbulence goes when things are running at high speed. So I like to talk. You're having a talk on Railvac in a couple of in next month, I understand. And this is just a little advert for me as I'm going forward for our training. We're looking at all the different solutions we can come up with, and it's really good that we're working together with corporate members to try and improve the machinery that we use. It wouldn't be a good day for me if I didn't talk about undersleeper pads, because the more I talk about them, the more I'm convinced that it's going to save us in sustainability terms a huge amount of ballast, because the ballast has got better bearing. There's a better bearing capacity here. This is all about contact area between the ballast and the sleeper, and you can see with undersleeper pads the difference you can see there from say 2% to 35%. DGS, by the way, if you don't want it, that's just because that's dynamics track stabilizer. They don't use it. They call it DGS in Austria. So undersleeper pads. Working with thermits at the moment. How can you cool wells down? Is that of use in these days where we want to run trains and reduce our possession times, etc. So that's good. And just to finish off on this section, I always have this little. Somebody's seen this picture many times. Hope you find that interesting. A bit of a wheelbarrow. So let's just talk about decarbonisation challenges. And this is a big issue. So nice to see that announcements have been made in Scotland about additional electrification. And if you've not heard about decarbonisation, it's a bit of a mouthful, really. But I mean, it's basically about getting rid of diesels and having more electric. It's quite easy. And we have amazing systems in the UK. I mean, we've had amazing amount of electricity from hydroelectricity in Scotland for years. But around the UK now with wind power and solar power, it's amazing how much electricity is available for us. So let's just use it for trains, in my view. And these are the challenges, huge challenges. How much of Britain's railways electrified? Look at this, you know, compare it with parts of Europe. And there's a lot of work to be done in making it cheaper, and you know, finding ways of looking at structural clearances, track layouts. Can we use batteries in connection? There's loads of stuff. It's going to be exciting out for the next few years. But the bottom line is phasing out of diesel, and I mean that's going to be a massive issue for us. Okay, so just finishing off now, I'm going to talk about why I'm here. I'm here to sort of talk about CPD, here to encourage you to come to meetings, get your friends to come to meetings, get more members to come to meetings. And, you know, you need 30 hours a year. So, you know, come to courses, seminars, etc. And companies, you know, need to be working, you know, and helping younger people. So there's a lot. I'm not going to go through all this slide because I obviously want to. You can read what you've got on the slide there. What you can come and see. And I've spent the last few years on the PWI trying to get reasonably interesting things, you know, for people to come and watch. And don't forget, there's more aspects to it. You know, there's a lot more stuff going on here with CPD apart from just the stuff that the PWI is producing. Because there's lots of stuff that people do at work which clicks into CPD, you know, and I think people should be aware that those are the sort of things. If I've got my professional registration hat on, which I always do, I'll say some of those things on there are nice tick boxes for when you do professional registration, project management, the legal side. How do you deal with people? How do you deal with equality and diversity? Equality and diversity is absolutely crucial to our country. It's crucial to the development of our companies, and it's inbred within, and it's not new. I mean, we've been talking about equality and diversity and equal opportunities in engineering for 30 years. This is not new. You know, so people think, oh, we never did anything about it. We have been doing. It's been a big issue within the Engineering Council and the other institutions. And again, it's about skills of people. So I hope that's useful, more aspects of CPD. So please join in with our meetings, and thank you for the people that turned up today. Join in the meetings, come to meetings, and click on when you think there's something interesting. And taking part in the section. A bit of an advert here. I'm obviously preaching to the converted here as well. And we've still got the tool, as you know, to the CPD tool, which I hope some people find useful. We are upgrading this, by the way, and you know, that's hot on the press going forward. So what can you expect from the PWI? What do you expect from the PWI going forward? Well, meeting up with people. That's the main thing, you know, and attending the meetings. We're going to be doing more training courses. I'm actually doing my first course in Scotland. I'm doing an S&C refurbishment course. I think it's in Glasgow or fairly near Glasgow in about April 2021. I'm working on that at the moment. So I'm really, really keen. I don't know whether I think Brian's on the line. Actually, I can see his name there. So I'm looking forward to discussing the final dates for that. So training course is a big issue. It's going to develop a lot more. We're looking at competency frameworks for all levels of people. The main thing is that we are an institution that is covering the whole of the the permanent way and infrastructure profession. So we're going to, again, it's about CPD, and as much encouragement and help as I can do. I'm delighted to hear talking about professional registration. I hope I haven't put people off by just talking about professional registration, because I really do think that, every time I do a talk on this, I like to talk about other things, especially on the technical side of the PWI. But we have got a new website and it's been brought forward. So by January, probably the end of January, the new website will be going live, PWI website. So it'll make a big difference to what we're doing. So I hope there's plenty to look forward to. Don't forget I just mentioned about the training that I'm doing at the moment. I've just picked out some things that I do under training. You can see on the right-hand side there, we're always looking at the wheel rail interface. There are a lot on S&C, and the track engineering diploma is still, we've got hundreds and hundreds of people who've been through that. The new one at the bottom there is this technical engineer, where we're looking to try, this is the sort of technical staff type, this is the sort of, I would probably call it your sort of somewhere between Eng Tech and iEng. So it's trying to get people upskilled in technical things where they work. We have now got a young engineers section, so we're trying to encourage people to join, and we've actually got, so people join the main part of the PWI, and then they also, we can be part of this young engineers section as well. And that seems to be working quite well. And I'm pleased Michelle Lumiere has done a lot of work on that. And if you know anybody who is currently an apprentice or a student, please encourage them to become a member of the PWI. They may be family, they may be friends at university on courses, doing civils, mechanical, whatever they're doing. They can be a free student member of the PWI. And certainly I expect all apprentices to be members. So that's it's free. So we've made a big effort to encourage people to join. And just before I finish, I just want to say that I expect as many people as possible to become Eng Tech. And I was talking to the graduates of Network Rail nationally a couple of weeks ago, and just saying, come on, after you've got a couple of years into the industry, get yourself registered. It's important. And some people have taken me up on that. So it's a route for all. And you can't do anything else but expect me to bang the drum on this, because the PWI is actually getting a lot of, let's just say, kudos from the Engineering Council about what we're doing at the moment. So messages there to come out with, have a crack at it. So I've got my diary here in front of me with my beer, and my diary says April 2021, we've got our major conference in Glasgow. So it will be going ahead. I'm absolutely convinced. And so see us in Glasgow, join us for a course and start your journey to professional registration, and get one of these certificates if you want by coming to one of my courses. So that's me over. I hope there was a lot on there. There's a lot of slides there. I hope it's not, people said it's a long PowerPoint presentation, but in a lot of ways you can read it as well. When you sat at home, you can read it. Hope that's been of interest, and I'm very much open to any questions that anybody might have.
Thank you very much, Brian.
And is my timing okay? I think I just about did you an hour there.
Yeah, that's absolutely excellent. So I just realised as when I'm masquerading as Tracy Chong, the organiser, I can't actually ask a question in the questions box, but I can do something in the chat, and in the chat, people can open the chat box. My question's about parallels. People find difficulty looking at the Engineering Council criteria, the development objectives, and saying, okay, I see the development objectives, how does that relate to my job? And people in my organisation say, well, take example criterion A. I need to be able to combine general and specialist engineering knowledge and understanding to apply existing an emerging technology in a track environment. I changed the word to track from an engineering environment to make it specifically focused on track. And then I've broken that down into things that would qualify for that to show how they'll demonstrate that. And that little roadmap I've got, I can share with anybody. You just need to contact me through PWI or through Jim, through the secretary, and I can talk you through how you would go ahead to meet your engineering council objectives and those competence criterion by doing the things that you do every day in your job. For my team, they're all track designers and young engineers, and they have difficulty looking at that criteria and say, well, how will I get this? It's a bit like looking at a blank sheet of paper and being asked to write something up. They don't know where to begin. If I lay out 2 or 3 objectives, I'm saying, well, you're halfway there already. You've met that one, and even asking me the question, you're going towards this. So that's just a kind of question and observation. But what I'll do is I'll open the mics now to everybody, and well, you can jump in and ask a question. So let me just see if I can do that. So you've got full control of your audio. You can unmute yourself at any time. Let's see who's going to be brave enough to ask a question. Well, at least you found the unmute button, Greg.
Well, has Greg got my question for me? I'll ask a question for Greg then. I'll ask you a question then, Greg, should I?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
I'll ask you, you've kindly volunteered to be chairman, I understand. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
So what do you think is the most important thing you're going to add to the job then? Because, you know, I mean, delighted that you've offered it. Well, what do you think that that you can do? Is there any particular thing that sticks in your mind that says that, you know, we should be doing this? Is that, I don't mean that you should do it, but it could be us as well with all the team scattered around the country. You know, is there anything that springs to mind that we could do more of?
Well, that's a really neat role reversal there, Brian, that we're supposed to ask you the questions. You've just fired a complex one at me. I don't know. I guess you know, I'm CEM for one of the biggest design programs in Scotland, and I'm fairly well connected in that role because it's part of the alliance. So I deal with staff from Network Rail and Babcock, and I have other connections and other consultants. So one of my things would just be to push, you know, push the PWI and encourage more people to attend our meetings, because they are really good that we've got in Glasgow and of course Edinburgh as well. But I guess that's my first focus, is just to try and encourage a bit more involvement, and even as a committee member, you're chasing people, you know, to give talks all the time anyway. So I'll just continue to do that and try and just widen our range of topics as we go. But yeah, it's just something I need to give a bit more thought onto as to what else I could bring to the role and what else we can maybe look at. But that's the sort of main priorities, I would say.
Well, I had 3 guys from, I mean, I love doing the training courses. I always open every course at Derby. I can't have it and the virtual ones. And it's just amazing the people from all over the country, a huge number from Scotland, come down to Derby in the last few years. And I just want to make sure that we're relevant as a PWI to the guys in the depots. And these three, I called them the Glasgow Tattooed Army. Whether that was a bit rude, I'm not sure, but they sat at the front with their tattoos showing, you see, and I just thought they were the Glasgow Tattooed Army, and they were really lovely guys. And I just thought, can they actually do more? Would they do more to encourage? Because they enjoyed the courses, and I think it's done them good. And it's just, what more can we do for these sort of people in terms of meetings or get-togethers or whatever we do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, well, you've been chatting on that. We've had a couple of questions. One from Eamon Johnson. He's asked if you could skip back to your slide on the experiential route.
Oh, yeah. If I can flip right, I'm going back a long way here, yeah. I can certainly, sorry it's flipping through, guys. Apologies for that. Because there was a lot of, this one, yeah. Can you see that one?
Yep, that's it.
He wants to ask on that, is there anything specific on that slide he wants to ask, or?
He was trying to take a screenshot of it because obviously I fancy that Eamon's going to have a crack at that, and he's just trying to get a better idea of how we would begin that journey.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I just wanted to take a screenshot of the slide because when I've asked the PWI for the options to, get to IN or CNG, this wasn't mentioned. So I just wanted to have a look.
Well, we've been doing it for a year, Eamon, but the reason why we've not made it a formal route is because we're just trying to find the engineering council are changing some of their stuff, so we need to just change it a bit. But the exercise has been done, and I mean, I've just had one lady through it, Lynn Garner, who's gone through the process. So there's quite a few people who we could put you in touch with who've managed to sort of, top up their bachelor degree with it and then gone and become chartered. So, what you've got to fill in, but it's basically you fill the form in of how the sort of things that you've done in your experience. So it's more like it underpins your, as you say, you've got to put your CV down. What have you done? And answer some questions. So I know it's not. I know there's a couple of people on the call at the moment, or this room that may have found it more difficult as well. But we have had some successes, and we want the engineering council want to push us with this. But it's definitely a route. If you've got the BSc or the BEng, it's almost like a bit of a top-up route, really.
Okay, thanks for that.
Thanks.
Another question or an observation in the question, this time from Mark Taylor, our ex-Vice President for Scotland. And he's talking about the sustainability aspect. So he's mentioned under sleeper pads. They extend the length of what is a finite asset, the ballast, and places like Mount Sorrel, they've got a limited life in terms of the quarry. Should we as an industry be considering taking much more recognition of, call it simple items such as ballast, so the quality of ballast, and for my part, I'm thinking especially the wet attrition value of ballast, which I'm sure we've all experienced it. Some quarries just fail to meet that wet attrition value.
Are you saying? Are you sort of pointing out that is that because we should do more to be more sustainable with the existing ballast, in the sense that or I mean, are you suggesting that we could use ballast that's got a less wet attrition value, or I mean, there may be circumstances where you could.
How you doing, Brian? It's Mark. A lot of stuff that we did on Aberdeen and Inverness was we reused a lot of the ballast. I know that some of the guys on here are probably sort of sick of me sort of saying this, but myself, I was probably instrumental in sort of asking the question, can we reuse some of the ballast? And over the course of 2 years, we probably recycled about 30,000 tonnes of ballast, because there are a lot of sort of quarries that have a finite amount of ballast left. And the reason why I say Mount Sorrel was Brian Beck, who's one of the Network Rail environmental managers, did a dissertation on it. And Mount Sorrel was one of the places that he visited. And ballast is a finite resource. So should we be looking sort of more to try and save some more of this finite? Because I travel the sort of network and I see umpteen piles of sort of ballast around about the area, and you're going, we could actually reuse that. We're wasting it. We're chucking it down the bank, and really, this is, does anybody realise that this is at some point this is going to run out?
So it's a very good point. I mean, there is the other issue in terms of, I mean, it's interesting how we've gone for harder ballast. I always ask the research question, and the research question that springs to mind is that the undersleeper pad or timber sleepers have always been quite, you know, the ballast has always lasted longer under timber sleepers than it has under concrete, because the concrete granite ballast interface is obviously not good, especially with the contact areas. I mean, there is a case for perhaps saying that with an undersleeper pad situation, that you could perhaps have a different, you know, a less, you know, a less sort of hard ballast. I mean, we're all trying to look at track stiffness and how that works. It's an interesting concept, I think. I'm into this business of you know, that point about the sleepers. I mean, I can't really understand why we've never taken that on board. You know, this business of a different shaped sleeper which spreads the load more. And I've never, you know.
What you're saying about undersleeper pad is relevant, and it's something that you need to specifically ask for nowadays. But it probably will go towards that when you order a new G44, that will come with an undersleeper pad, which does help. But also, what helps as well. I mean, you touched on sort of, you know, environmental concerns about flooding and Carman, you know, Stonehaven and all the rest of it. I mean, one of the things, and again, it's quite sort of, you know, gratifying to hear that, you know, one of the things that you've heard as well is that one of the first jobs that sort of always goes in any sort of project is, yeah, we'll just forget about the sort of, you know, the drainage. But as anybody on here who's a PWI engineer will always tell you, and it's Jerry Toner. I need to quote Jerry Toner, who was a designer in the Scottish region a few years ago. Who's your friend, the ballast? Who's your friend, the water? Who's your enemy, the water? Right. So if you sort out your water, then everything else takes care of itself. And I think that's now starting to be relevant and recognised by certain parties within the industry.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. I mean, going back to my point, you know, what can we do to spread the knowledge and understand how we move things forward? I mean, you know, so thank you very much, Mark. Good to hear from you again. Anyway, cheers.
And I think it's important to note that the younger folks in the audience will be the engineers that carry the sustainability challenge forward. So a question from Michelle Mullen about that. Does the PWI speak directly to the apprentices at Westwood to make them aware of the PWI and encourage them to join as near to their day one as possible?
Well, I'm glad she's asked that question, Michelle. Thank you for that. Because I've been invited to do that. Funnily enough, I was just about to go before COVID started, so I'm not really sure where I stand on that at the moment, going in as a visitor. I don't know how the apprenticeships are working at Westwood, but I have had an open invitation to go in there. I'm working quite strong. I mean, I am working with the apprentice department, and in fact, I think Dan's on the call at the moment, Dan Malloy. We spoke about this earlier this week, about going to Westwood and talking to the apprentices. And absolutely, they all should be student members, free student members of the PWI when they join. It should be fill the form in, you're an apprentice, you're part of us. And that's how I see it happening. And we've had even more conversations this week about not using other institutions because we are the track institution. And it's just there's a lot of complexity to do with this thing called an endpoint assessment. And we are working our way through that at the moment, because it's really important that Network Rail apprentices are aware and are members of the PWI. Because theoretically, see what happens if you're an apprentice, you join as a student member when you join the railway, and then when you get your endpoint assessment to complete your apprenticeship, you automatically get Eng Tech, because you've done everything that you need to do to pass that endpoint assessment is Eng Tech equivalent, or what we call Eng Tech ready. So we're missing a bit of a trick there. So thank you for reminding me that, Michelle. And Dan and I are certainly on the case. Thank you.
An observation from Michelle before the next question. When she was the route asset manager, she pushed to allow a local quarry up in the far north of Scotland to be used due to low tonnage, low intervention, and it was a better whole life cost. Not really sure how that one finished.
Sorry, the point I was making was it had a lower wet attrition value than is acceptable, but in terms of sustainability and whole life cost and everything, I still think it was the right decision. We don't always need the same grade of ballast everywhere. And we need...
Yeah, Michelle, you're probably right. I mean, we probably talked about reusing sort of asset when we were doing A2I, when you were the sort of the RAM, and you're right. If we get to a stage where we don't have that quality of ballast that we expect, then can we go down to a slightly lower level of ballast that allows us to still achieve the same result?
Yeah, and the Aberdeen, sorry, the A2I is not 125 miles an hour, 40 equivalent million gross tons. We need to accept that, because when you do have a finite resource, you need to think outside the box a little bit, and I don't think we're very good at doing that.
No, we are very much
Michelle, yeah. I've not really thought about that, Michelle, but I'll take that away. Thank you. I'll look at that, definitely. Thank you.
And that's one where the challenges to Network Rail standards would come into play, where you say, yes, the standard says there's one size fits all, but is that the same for everywhere? And that leads me on to the next question, which is from Daniel Malloy, who says, first of all, thanks for a great presentation, Brian. Reflecting on your comments in the graph showing upward trends, we're expecting to see temperatures rise as a result of climate change. Do we really need to start thinking about whether we need to increase the SFT in the UK rail network now, or can we afford to leave it?
I think it's a very good question, and it's something I've been banging on about for the last certainly the last 2 years, because I started going into history of how we ended up with 27. And when you look at it, it was that 27 came from work that was done by Derby Research in the 60s. And when they were advising other countries, and particularly I remember India, this is an interesting, India is in different zones. And India, how they worked out their SFT was related to looking at the mean of temperature over a 10-year period. And so that needs to be reviewed. Again, it's something that I know that the technical authority of Network Rail are looking at, and I've certainly had that discussion. There doesn't seem a massive amount of willingness. It seems a fairly simple thing to do to me, but you can. I'm sure you can make that decision, and it would be, to me, it would be helpful, I think.
Exactly, and I've always argued that why should we have the same SFT for WIC as we have for Truro?
The other thing is, Tom, anybody in Scotland, Tom, would welcome a sort of rise in temperature, because that would be quite nice. Of a sort of a nice
place to live. You're just trying to increase your property price.
It is fascinating though, because I always make a real effort to watch the national weather, and it's amazing. There's been hotter temperatures in Scotland in the last few years, surprisingly so. And it's just an interesting view, because we always said you have a different SFT for Scotland or England. I'm not quite sure.
It's an interesting one, Brian. Jim Watson coming in here. Last month we had a very topical presentation on the use of steel sleepers, and that has actually led to a bit of debate through social media, through LinkedIn, regarding stress-free temperatures. And it's caused me to actually go and look at statistics, because in Scotland we have two sections of main line, one in the East Coast, one in the West Coast, where we have steel sleepers running at 125 miles an hour. Now, interestingly, the mean maximum temperature, air temperature for both of these sites is something like 19 degrees C, with a recorded maximum of 31, one being in the East Coast, one being in the West Coast. So it really is high time that we perhaps take a look at what the standard SFT should be, bearing in mind that the SFT of 27 degrees was set in the 1960s, when standard CWR was a £113 rail on F-type concrete sleepers at 26 to the length. times have changed. The other analogy I would throw in there was a bit of work I was involved in South Africa, where we had a new standard gauge railway being built and a great debate on what the SFT should be. We had involvement of TTCI from the States, and at the end of the day, what they come up with through a lot of calculation was an SFT of 29 degrees C, not that far away from what we have in the UK today. And that was for the high belt of South Africa.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jim. Last couple of questions. One from Robert McCafferty, who asks, is it possible to share the course material from the PWI training with PWI members? Is that possible? Or do you have to go on the course?
Well, we are thinking of using some of the material to create sort of more information. That's new. I mean, we do provide people who come on the course with information, but we can't really. And we don't really want to be giving it out for free. Let's just say, because a lot of work went on to put it together. But it is going to be part of a strategic plan going forward to provide more information for people who like guides and stuff like that. Definitely. But it's a good question, and thank you for asking for that one. I'll make a note of that.
Okay. And a final, just a response from Daniel Malloy. He says he's going to follow up with the apprentice team to arrange either a face-to-face meeting with you or one over the virtual airwaves.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
If there's no further questions, then I'll just snatch back the screen and just go through the remainder of the agenda, so hopefully you can see that. We've had the questions and comments, and I now ask Greg McMillan if you'll just unmute yourself, Greg, and propose the vote of thanks to Brian for us.
Sure, yeah. So, Brian, it's a real topic of interest for many people, I'm sure. Professional registration is on everyone's radar and becoming increasingly important to employers, I would say. And I think previously, for PWI people anyway, it was quite difficult to set about becoming professionally registered with other institutions. But it's great now that we have that option through the PWI, and I'm sure that is encouraging a lot more PWI engineers to seek professional registration. It was good to see some of the background and history in your slides of the PWI and its evolution from 1884 to present day. And here we are now doing online presentations and offering professional registration, and as you said, having 200 registered engineers, so it's came quite a long way. Yeah, I thought it was really good. A lot of great info on why you should become registered as well, and I liked how you didn't just go through the process of applying for registration, but the wider topics you touched on really helped put it into perspective and show the importance of the PWI, as well as by looking at the growth and expansion of the network to deal with demand, and your slides on the new challenges faced by us all, and the hot topic of decarbonisation and climate change. As Mark mentioned as well, though, I'm not entirely convinced Scotland will be the holiday destination of choice and we'll be basking at 40 degrees, but I'll certainly look forward to that anyway.
Ye of little faith, ye of little faith.
No, I know. Yeah, I think, as I say, it's great. It wasn't just all about how to become a member or become professionally registered. You covered innovation as well, talking about things like we should be challenging things like sleepers and welding, looking at ways to make things more efficient. I was going to say it was slightly more challenging, or maybe I should just say it's a bit different having a PWI meeting online because of COVID restrictions, but I think it worked really well. And one massive advantage of doing it online is that all this is recorded and will be available on YouTube. So even people that were listening tonight can refer back to it for anything they missed. And I'll certainly be going back to check out a few things myself on that. So I think I'll just finish up just by saying thanks very much, Brian, for an excellent presentation. It was well delivered and very much appreciated.
Good, thank you very much. Well, you can buy me a pint next time I come up then.
That's it. Yeah.
We're going to do the bit that sometimes doesn't work online. So if you can unmute your microphones, and we will thank Brian in the traditional manner. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.